where we could discuss with two experts in the field about these upcoming models. Eatable Adventures, we are dedicated. Paula, can you move on? At Eatable Adventures, we believe startups are leading the way, creating solutions on how to transform food is produced, transformed, and consumed. We connect the most disruptive food startups with corporations, investors, and we help develop the right collaborations with a single mission, that is to build up the future food companies. Today, we are with Emna Neyfar and Ivan Farnetti. Emna is a Chief Commercial Officer of Cortilia. Ivan is a founder and managing partner at 5 Seasons Ventures. We will start with Emna. Emna graduated from HEC School of Management in Paris and started her path in strategic consulting at Monitor Deloitte, with focus on consumer business and retail industry. In 2013, she moved to Italy and she launched and managed the Italian subsidiary of the French organic retailer Bio Cibon. From 2018, Emna is the Chief Commercial Officer at Cortilia, and in these 2 years, leading the purchase and marketing team, she achieved a transformational evolution of the product assortment, the launch of a process of marketing automation and personalization of the user experience and promotional strategies, inauguration of the first physical point of sales, announcing the omni-channel strategy of Cortilia. And you've been quite busy these 2 years. Your background prior to Cortilia was closely linked to physical retail. What led you to jump to the online side?
Hi, everyone. Actually, when I met the founder of Cortilia for the first time, what was very fascinating was not only the channel of distribution that was digital, but all the digital and the data-driven part of the e-commerce. When you have an e-commerce, you have a lot of data on the products, on the customer, on the channels, a lot of insights that make you live in a different world. You react very quickly, and you have a lot of insight that you can turn into daily decisions of new products and new features of the service that can build a business model completely different from the retail or the physical retail, even if at the end you are selling food to the end customer.
Mm-hmm. And COVID has for sure impacted your operations. Which are the most demanding areas at the moment?
When it first started, the most critical part was technical and UX. Imagine a physical place when you get only 100 people can go at a time, and suddenly you have 10,000 or hundreds of people who want to go in this place. So it's crowded, and the technological part was very challenging. Then the other part was the operations. You know that in all the European countries, and especially in Italy, we had this panic that led the people to want to make a very large shopping, having it immediately, stock a lot of unperishable goods. So the impact on operation was challenging. One for the quantity of requests, and two for the quality, because people wanted everything immediately. They had a lot of questions on safety. They had a lot of concerns about how we select the product and how we deliver it to your doorstep.
Okay, so we will get back to you, and now we go to present Ivan. Ivan Farnetti is a co-founder and managing partner in 5 Seasons Ventures. He's been an active venture capitalist for the last 20 years. He's the 5 Seasons Ventures is the first Europe fund fully focused on food tech. He's passionate about products and technology innovation and at solving big challenges in the food industry, from alternative sources of proteins to functional foods, new model of food distribution, and reduction of food waste. At 5 Seasons, he's invested in gene editing company Tropic Biosciences, pet nutrition company Butternut Box, plant-based meat alternative this.co, obviously Cortilia, a meat replacement company Y Food Labs, and direct-to-consumer Just Spices. Ivan, you have been also very busy, and I know you are very busy these days. So thanks for joining us. Similarly, your background has shifted from a general market approach to a food industry specific. What is what attracted you to join the food segment?
Hi, Jose Luis, and thank you for having me here. It's a first time we have this type of virtual conferences, so we'll try to get used to it probably more often than ever. But yeah, I think I come from a background of investing in technology companies. So I started investing in startups back in '97 when I was in London. And I've been through different technology funds and mostly invested in software and internet services throughout, good days and bad days. I think I've seen the dot-com bust, seen the 2008 crash and all that. So this is yet another crisis. And I think our job wouldn't be fun if it was just simple. What got me into food and food tech? I think it was a very distinctive moment when in 2015, I visited the Global Food Expo in Milan. It was like 25 million people visited the exhibition center over a number of months. And it was the first time where I could actually see the magnitude of what was happening. The urbanization of people where, food doesn't grow in cities, the reduction of availability of resources, the amount of waste, the problem that obesity and malnutrition were causing. So as an investor, I think we have one skill, I guess, which is pattern recognition, right? We look at something, we try to understand the pattern and see where the pattern is going. And to me, when we started to really think about this, was at the end of 2015, the beginning of 16, I thought, the magnitude of the challenge and the transformation in the food industry reminded me of what I saw 18 years before when the internet started to challenge the world of technology. But not only the transformation was massive, the underlying forces were tremendous. The macroeconomic environment was favorable, but I also saw something else. On one side, the demand for better food system was not met by the incumbent. The large food companies are really good at optimizing the process and repeating it at large scale and reduce the cost of whatever they do to a mass market world. But that comes with inflexible system. It's much easier for a startup to pick up some of those challenges. And so what I saw is the inability of the large food companies to really switch to a different gear, just like the technology giants of 20 years before. And on the other side, hundreds and thousands of entrepreneurs starting new companies, much agile and much faster. So as an investor, to me, that was the trend. That was the pattern that I recognized from 20 years earlier. And I thought food tech is going to be the next big revolution. And that's where we decided to start 5 Seasons Ventures. And with my business partner, Niccolo Manzoni, who had been investor in Beyond Meat, Impossible Food, and Clara Food, and Perfect Day on the early days, we had the horizontal knowledge of technology development of fast-growing companies and the inside view of food tech. We brought on board a team of people that come with pedigree in food manufacturing and scale-up, like Giancarlo Dario, who was in R&D and production at Barilla for 20 years. So we created a team of people that understand growth, technology, and food production.
Okay. We similarly see that the food industry is becoming what the internet was 20 years ago. And it's a tremendous set of opportunities laying ahead for the companies that take the step and go forward. So to frame the conversation, to put everything in context, the direct-to-consumer is rising in the food environment, and we see a few elements that are basically helping to lead this development. e-commerce growth is there. Consumers are looking for food items beyond retail. So specifically, food delivery has been fundamental in consumers accepting that they can acquire fresh food and consume it through online properties. Consumer demands convenience, and they demand it on a fast, personalized, and adapted way. Personalization and adapting consumer taste is basically happening more and more these days. All these developments are happening mostly through startups that are delivering the flexibility that the consumers are demanding, and they are basically finding out the spaces between the large companies and making their market niche and growing that market niche into a business that is sensible and meaningful. Corporations are speeding up e-commerce, and mostly these days with COVID, many corporations are questioning how to get into direct-to-consumer. PepsiCo, for example, acquired a Chinese snack company, B& Cherries, for over $700 million in order to advance into direct-to-consumer CPG models. And investors are definitively identifying the opportunity that food and technology and direct-to-consumers are bringing to the table, and are jumping into the bandwagon, investing into companies like YFood. Let's go to what are the takeaways we want to get out of this session. The first one is to define and frame what different direct-to-consumer models exist and how startups are disrupting. What are the benefits and barriers of direct-to-consumer models? And how is COVID affecting the development of these models, whether positively, whether this is for the short term or is some trend that we will see in the long term. Let's go to the first of these takeaways, defining direct-to-consumer models and how startups are developing them. And you are obviously at the core of this activity. How are you managing direct-to-consumer in the food space, and how do you see the projection?
Actually, the trend has been active for more than 10 years, but what we noticed recently is that the consumer is always looking for more information on the origin of the product, on the ingredients, on a certain speed of the service. So all these aspects lead to the growth of direct-to-consumer. With the farmer part, because Cortilia is positioned on the fact that it delivers to you directly from the farm. So on this part, there is also all the storytelling aspect that clients value a lot. They want to know where does it come from, but also who is behind it, the origin, the process, and the environmental and social impact. All these elements put together lead to a bulk of a product and the service that respond to this new customer expectations. What we see in Italy is that this growth has been made through two channels. One is very innovative, let's say, and digital, which is the one that Cortilia is leading actually in the Italian market. And the other one is the more unstructured channel. So it's really direct to consumer from the farmer itself, with maybe informal user experience like ordering by phone, or that can have also their own targets, like, for example, other not urban places or different age populations. What we see in this period is that the service part is becoming important as much as the product part. And this is what will make the difference, what is making the difference already now, and what will make the difference in the future.
Okay. Ivan?
I think, if there is one thing that we can probably say at this point in time, is that direct-to-consumer food is the winner of the COVID period, right? I'm sure there are other businesses in digital, content or things like that have done really well. But I'm amazed at the way direct to consumer in food has managed to do well for businesses and well for society. Making sure that people were not panicking too much because they couldn't get access to food. When people working in the health service, were taken care of by a lot of companies that could get them food directly at home, and making sure that they could do what they had to do. Not leaving behind elderly people that couldn't go to the store and buy things, and making sure that they were the first one to be catered for. And I think I'm really proud of our portfolio companies, but a lot of the others that I've seen doing incredibly well. And I think if we just step back a second and not really think only COVID, because I think these days there's a bit of too much of that. But it's interesting, but the digital world has now morphed into the physical world. Like 15 years ago, a traditional food company would develop a product, give it to a wholesaler, the wholesaler would give it to a retailer, and then maybe 3-4 months later, Nielsen would collect the data and you would know if it's doing okay. If you're lucky, you can have some insider from there and try to iterate. Now, the reason why D2C is really different is it has brought in a lot of the techniques and the mindset from the digital world into the physical world. And this is unsettling for the incumbents. And and again, I think at this stage, I wanted to just give a little bit of a taxonomy. I mean, there isn't one, but we're making one up internally. When we look at potential investment companies, there are different stages of direct to consumer, right? So on one extreme hand, you have a digital native vertical brand. This is a company that is born digital, has the complete control of the supply chain from manufacturing to distribution. The whole experience is controlled through technology. One of our portfolio company, Butter in a Box, it's pet food, fully personalized, fully digital. You can only buy it online, and that's the classic example. You have the digital vertical native retailer, which is Cortilia. You can only buy Cortilia products through Cortilia. The supply chain is integrated with specific suppliers you can only find on Cortilia and nowhere else. And the experience, again, is controlled entirely from a data-driven product, from consumer back to the supplier through technology. So that's what we really call D2C. However, some of the companies can also use direct-to-consumer as a secondary channel. And this is through their own website. They build it, they morph it, but maybe production is outsourced. Maybe they use co-packers. Maybe they also use traditional retail channel. And the omni-channel strategy of companies like Just Spices or YFood is proving to be incredibly good for type of products where the basket size and the type of product actually isn't just perfect for one channel, but can work throughout different channels. If you step back, then an easier way to look at direct to consumer is the classic Amazon strategy, whether you're a vendor approved or whether you're a FBA and you're testing a new market, right? A company in Spain could probably put a few pallets on Amazon, try to test whether there is a reception in a new market, and with that, try to get some information. The quid pro quo, it's easier and cheaper to do. On the other side, you get very limited data, and that's the richness of the D2C market that we don't really get by only selling on Amazon. The final level, so the basic level, what we see is what we call the digital activation. So companies like this, which produces plant-based chicken and bacon, would not sell that product through direct to consumer easily because the unit value, the basket size is too small. However, those companies are great at creating awareness through social media and the digital channels. So the activation of the community happens through a direct discussion with their customers, which in turn become, customers become, retailers, become resellers, and become restaurants and all that. So those are the 5 levels from the most engaged to the minimum. And as investor, we look at all of them.
Okay, so it's a very good description. So you think that the traditional manufacturers will find a single model, or they will have to address multiple different roles in this direct to consumer approach?
I think you know the large. I think large, medium, and small traditional manufacturers have now seen what happens when a very astute team of founders with digital backgrounds comes in without the limitation, the bureaucracy, and the politics that affect large businesses in any case, and are able to test and iterate very fast. There is a very smart corporate guy called Gil Horsky who works at Mondelez, who came up with the term of ankle biters, and we use this term a lot. This is the term that he uses when looking at maybe a small snacking company or a small breakfast cereal company that is making 10 million, but very fast. It's an ankle bite. It's a little mosquito that is annoying. It's not going to change the dynamic of the world. And what you normally do is you neglect them. You take your eyes away. You're sticking to your core business. And 5 years or 3 years later, that company is making hundreds of millions in revenues. The story of Soylent in US, everybody laughed at them. There were jokes about it, and people say, "Yeah, well, it's never going to happen." And now Soylent is a very, very credible company. Built through the direct to consumer, built through the digital channels, and now there are like also copycats and followers in Europe, and they're doing incredibly well. And I think the cat is out of the bag. Large corporations now know that this is a channel. They are mixed with curiosity and a bit of fear. I think probably more curiosity and the will to experiment. I think the challenge there is hiring the people that have the skill set to do what needs to be done, and let them free to experiment without maybe some of the constraints that are typical of larger corporations.
Yeah, this is something that we are actually we fully agree. We are seeing this happening, and it's the right path. And I'm glad to pre-announce that Gil will join us in a future seminar webinar in this series. So he will be with us soon. Let's go to the following question. What are the benefits and barriers of direct-to-consumer models? And
actually, in the direct-to-consumer, the most interesting advantages are related to the traceability of the product and the freshness, which are very tangible, because I can tell you a lot of things on the branding and the relationship, but this is not very tangible. But when you have your strawberry box in your hands and you see that it has been picked only a few hours ago, in the farming, retail, this is very important, because direct means also a short supply chain. And with a short supply chain, you have short delivery times. So often you receive at home, and you see it a lot with the fruit, with the leaves. You receive the strawberries and the spinach that have been picked only a few hours ago from the farm. And this is, for our clients, one of the first satisfaction criteria, because they really see how the freshness and it impacts obviously the taste. So the freshness and the taste. The other part is the traceability, because we are all worried now about what we consume. Where does it come from? How, which treatment did you apply? Are you sure it's not, Italians, but maybe also everywhere in the world, they exaggerate a little bit on scenarios of maybe it comes from a dangerous place, maybe it comes from a production chain that is not that I cannot trust. So trust is communicated through this short supply chain. You know exactly the person, who it is, If you go on the Cortilia website, you can even see the picture of the person. And with the addition of social network and newsletters, we transfer all the atmosphere also that is in the camps directly to your home. So maybe you go directly on Instagram, you see the farmers that are working, that are preparing your tomorrow's meal. And this is very important for our customers because it's not just a marketing argument. It is also the trust you put in the product, you taste you have, and all the benefits you can have from a product where you know exactly where it comes from. Of course, every benefit has a side effect. Working directly with the farmer also means a lot of uncertainty because if we have a short supply chain and some incidents happen, maybe your product is at risk. So you ordered the strawberries for tomorrow, but unfortunately today it is raining and you don't have the strawberries tomorrow morning. But companies like Cortilia have this role to take the direct to consumer, even if it is applied to farming, to a stronger level of structure. So for example, we diversify the risk, we diversify the geographical supply, so we are always sure to have the product. We diversify the risk also of the packaging. In that case, you are sure, even in a fragmented market, because the farming market is really fragmented, even with a fragmented market, you have a player that is able to aggregate all the offer and to bring it together to your home. And this is another difference with the small players. I told you before, for example, the farmer, where you can send the WhatsApp and order and they deliver directly to you. It's not only a difference of user experience, it's also how exhaustive the offer is and how it can take to your house the complete shopping.
Mm-hmm. But trust is certainly an area that e-commerce was lacking in food and specifically in fresh food. So this is very important that you are making a solid connection with the producer and you are bringing this experience that normally the physical retail is unable to offer and to deliver.
Yes, actually in the physical retail, you build the trust with another approach. You see the product and you see exactly how it is and you can read directly the labels and everything and you choose, I take it, I don't take it. Mm-hmm. While in the e-commerce, you have to trust a screen with a photo and a small description. And maybe you know that most of the people now do the shopping through the smartphone. So it is a very limited space of screen with very small pictures. And we build trust also in the fact that we photograph exactly what you receive at home. Mm-hmm. So if 200 grams are made of 20 small strawberries, we take the picture exactly of this box. So there is no disappointment when you receive it. The other part we try to build trust is having a community of customers who talk together indirectly or directly through the events, even if now we don't, unfortunately, we are stopping them. In the events where all our customers gather, they can exchange, I tried this product, you tried this one, I recommend you use this one. Or the digital part of it, which is the NPS, Trustpilot. If you, before you buy a product or even before the consideration part of the funnel, you go and see on Trustpilot how is the score of the merchant. And this is an important part, even if it is digital, to transmit trust, because trust is built through the corporate means, but also through the community means.
So Ivan, you mentioned data as a benefit before, and what are the benefits and barriers do you see in the direct-to-consumer models?
Well, once once you start to look at the model of food distribution and food production, as I said, historically, you have a rear mirror view of the data. So whether you have Nielsen data or whatever source you have, it's normally T-1, T-2, T-3 in terms of months. And for many years, that was perfectly enough. Changes in consumer preferences weren't as fast. TV was broadcasting a certain program. That was the clock that created awareness and purchase. Now that's all out of the window, right? Food preferences and trends change a lot faster. People decide that plant-based is hot, and in the space of a few months, the whole world knows that it's hot. And then they may decide that there is something else. So it's very hard for anybody thinking about product development, pricing adjustments, to do that in real time when all you have is data that is 3 months old. Even more so in food, when seasonality is very important. If you can get your price right for the Christmas season, you're going to maximize. If you get it wrong, you're going to have to wait again. So data is very, very important. It's very important for product development, as Hemna was saying. If you figure out that people don't eat sausage and mash anymore, but the pictures on Instagram are by celebrities, by athletes, by everybody, are pictures that show avocado on toast being the new fad. Well, if you're a spices company, maybe you should pick that information as soon as it comes out, come out with a product real fast, chuck it on the market D2C, and see what happens. If you're right, you're going to be 6 to 8 months in the market before any of the traditional guys are going to be able to pick up the trends and figure out whether that's something to do. So it is important for marketing decision, for pricing decision, deciding, we were interested because, at some point, when you have a direct connection with your customers, it's the purchasing data at what time, which is the first item that they put on the basket, all sorts of things, but you have customer service. And I was talking about it, and at Cortilia and at other companies, when the customer calls you in, right, it's an incredible opportunity to pick up data and information about preferences, about a conversion. It's an ability, you have the ability to convert and renew and re-engage, which none of the traditional guys have. So it's interesting that when people say, well, but is this easier or more difficult to do than traditional food? I say it's just different, because there are certain skill sets and certain level of experience that you need to have in making traditional food, which are really specific to it. And the same way, the skill sets to make a successful D2C company are very different. I don't think they're, when I list the critical people to hire for D2C business, the data analyst, so the person that understands what data we're going to segment, how we're going to use it, how we're going to bring it back into the business lines, is super, super important. I don't think there is any person with an AI background hired by Danone or whoever as a first priority, right? Maybe eventually you do, but not having a founder that comes from that digital background and understand power of data, it's a handicap for anybody willing to start a D2C business. So data is fundamental, because at some point, the easy part will finish. And optimization becomes a religion, where you have optimization in the conversion, in the campaigns that you do, in which channel you do, which influencer you're gonna manage or not, and then God forbid you have a subscription model, so the renewal cycle and all that, it's all data driven.
So that implies that startups, when they develop direct-to-consumer models, they should have a very strong focus on the data package and information that they're going to provide to the product owners. And and vice versa. The product owners really need to select the platforms that they're going to collaborate with based on the data they're going to obtain, as well as economical return and reach.
I'll give you a slightly different answer if you're talking about a startup doing it or a corporate doing it, because I think it's different. I think a corporate will have to study very carefully what package to use for enterprise scalability, security, all of the really good features that you need to look at. Also in terms of the political acceptance, in terms of the ownership, it's a decision that normally would go through a number of iterations, consultants or more, and try to understand how that system is going to interoperate with other systems, whether it's billing, credit score, supply chain, all that. A startup doesn't have that. You just get on Shopify, you hack together a site, you put up a web and a mobile site, and have a go. If you're a good startup founder, you're going to think of one thing and one thing only. The experience that I'm going to provide to customers is going to be 10 times better than whatever else is out there. In terms of the quality of the food, when people receive the courgette of Emna, they love it. They're going to go online and they say, oh my God, these are the best courgette, the best carrots I've ever had in my life, right? That's important. They're going to come on time perfectly with a nice note or something special, a little surprise. Delight your customer first. After that, once your Shopify platform is saturated, when you need to order more instances of AWS because the load balancer is not working anymore, okay, that's a great thing. That's when you go to a VC and you raise money and you scale it up properly. But I think it's the lean startup methodology in a way from a technical standpoint, but make no shortcut on the quality of the product you sell.
Okay, good. So before we move to the next question, I would like to remind to the audience that we will do a Q&A at the end, and we are happy to start receiving questions, and we will move to those questions after the next question and discussion. So next, we are going to discuss about, and you said before you didn't want to restrict to COVID, but how is the current situation affecting to the development of these models, Ivan? Do you think the activity and the increase of use of direct-to-consumer services and e-commerce in general is going to stay in time, or is just a temporary fix to a market closing?
Well, I'll keep it short because I think nobody has the real answer. So I think at best I can give you an opinion. So I think the other day, the CEO of Microsoft, Nadella, said, the last 2 months have created digital transformation for the next 2 years. And that's true, I think, throughout every sector. Some sectors have been really affected negatively by COVID. I think food services have been negatively affected. Retail has been okay. And I think direct-to-consumer food has been taking a lot of market share. So Cortilia has been doing fantastically well, both socially and economically. I think the spirit has been tremendously positive throughout this incredibly difficult time. Customers have responded throughout the sectors. And I think, sometimes we joke, and maybe in Italy, you really needed the end of the world to get people to shop online. So now we got pretty close to it. But I think the convenience, the experience, the quality, I think there's going to be an inelastic response after the virus is going to be, no longer the priority of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The harder a country has been hit and the tougher the restrictions, I think the more appreciation people will have for the new way of living, and they will be slower in going back to whatever was before. So I think I've seen some statistics, but they're whatever they're worth. But a lot of the statistics that you see throughout Europe indicate that a lot of the people who use online delivery platforms for the first time indicate that they are more likely than ever before to continue to use them after. So I think this is not just a blip. And I think customer service and retention are going to be the metrics that every entrepreneur needs to focus on for after this phase. But I think it's here to stay.
That's good. Emna, you actually have produced a few slides, a plan for how to react to this situation, and we have a couple of slides that maybe you can go through them if you want, or you can talk openly and we present to the audience.
Yes. So what we noticed, even if the timeline was short, or a little more than 2 months, but we have been through different phases during this. It was very intense. It was very intense, and it requested a very high reactivity, because every day something was going on, and you had to manage to go quickly through new implementation of new features of the website, new product offer also, etc. What we noticed is that starting February 24th, which is the first official day in Italy of panic, let's say, till the lockdown, which was March 8th, we have been only reacting. So every day there was a new news, and every day the panic, because it's all related to the customer sentiment. Of course, we are offering products and services, but we are also responding to the more than panic, maybe anxious mood of the consumer, because nobody wanted to go out from home on one side, and on the other side, there was this panic that suddenly we will all remain without food. And in this phase, we have been reacting, making especially safety measures, also to make sure everyone remains, of course, safe, but also to transmit this message to our clients. So all the parts of the equipment for the warehouse. Before, for example, we used to do a very eco-friendly measure, which was when we bring you the new shopping, we collected back the boxes, but we stopped this because even if the probability to get infected through this is very close to zero, we thought it was a contact point that was absolutely not necessary in this case. So all these measures to demonstrate you are reacting on the safety part. The other part is all the parts related to your performance, because suddenly you have a huge demand and you have to respond to this demand on two aspects: the tech aspect, so as I said before, the servers, the UX, etc., but also the logistics, because you cannot serve everyone with the current warehouse, the current transportation system, and the current supply chain. And unfortunately, this is the limitation that remains most over time, and that is today still valid, because you cannot triplicate the warehouse. We are talking about digital, but behind digital, there is a physical limited space where you cannot move more than X pieces by day. And the pieces currency has been our discussion every day, because people started buying a different mix of products. So it created a lot of pieces of low value, like, I don't know, chickpea or similar things. And the first phase of reaction shifted to a daily adapt of the business model through especially following the every day what is going on the public and legislation part. Because at the beginning there was a lot of confusion in Italy, but also in other parts, which are the red zones. So you cannot deliver there, or you cannot bring the products from this part. But then everywhere was a red zone, and there were new instructions. And this played a lot of also measures based on psychology, and the role of communication emerged as very important to, we talked about trust on the product side before, but now trust shifted also to the experience, shifted also to you can trust me because you have been a historical client, but today you cannot shop because the capacity is limited. We have been in a compassion mode with a few customer segments. So we implemented, for example, a white list for the people working in the hospital so they can do their shopping with more serenity. The role of communication has been also in the use of the words we go to send you in the newsletter that are completely different. The call to action is no longer go online and shop this product, but stay safe. And this is a very important part. The other adaptation we had to make very quickly, and even today it is still important, and even talked before about the role of data, and the high reactivity is today possible thanks to data, because you can identify the trends very quickly when you are a digital company. For example, the flour and yeast part, we identified just in the second day. In the first week, we already identified that people started taking higher portions of the products, because maybe now you're no longer single. You went to your parents' home. So the portions completely changed. The role of prevention, for example, there is this myth that people have been stocking on pantry. It is true that they have been stocking on pantry, but it is also true that they incremented their purchase of fruits and vegetables, because there was a high perception of I need to bring these vitamins in my body to be more immune and to be a little bit stronger if I have attacks, let's say. We have also seen a sanification trend, apart the sanitizer for the hands, but also all the house parts. So we have reacted very quickly to insert the right product. All the categories have been reviewed to adapt to these new consumer patterns that are completely different. Maybe they existed, but they didn't have this importance. And this was very important also, how you react. And then now we started a third phase, let's say, that is what is the new model, even if we know that the uncertainty is still going on. But the new model, the new normal is not just the normal, the back to normal. It's, as we say, a new normality. So we have to understand very well what are the behavioral patterns that are willing to last in the time. And this is very important for the people who are doing R&D on the product, the people who are making the UX, because now they can understand what to put first in the website. This is very important also for the consumption of the same product, but in a different way. For example, one of the interesting trends we identify, what I call we are all chefs, which is what you used to do before in the restaurant, now you do it at home. So we noticed an increase in all the parts of the wine, the usual aperitivo you used to do in the bar, now you do it at home. You are cooking fish of a certain type. You are cooking certain types of meat that usually you used to cook very little, because you used to take them at the restaurant. So we are identifying all these trends to create the new assortment, the new product assortment, the new way of selling it, the new way of presenting it to you. I think also all the organic part is, we already see the trend, but it will get even further. In France, I see it even with the higher speed. The organic channels, distribution channels increased, and also the organic products in the classical retail. I think the part of food supplements will increase also for two reasons. One is the immunity segment, and the other one, unfortunately, we have been at home, we have been eating, we have been putting on weight, we did a little sport, so all the parts food supplements related also to the protein intake, because we have been doing pizza at home, and now it's time to go back to a normal body also. Okay. And over time we will continue this phase. I think the winning model, as I put, will be very adaptive, because every day a new thing is emerging, and we are not sure how the summer will be. So this is also a new trend that we will follow very closely, because if we spend summer at home, it means whether you do food or you do gardening things or you do swimming pools, I think this will be a very important phase where we will see new consuming patterns and trends.
Okay. So we will move on with questions. We have a few questions already, and feel free to post them either in the comments or addressing directly to the panelists. We have one question, a few questions related with Amazon, actually. Amazon, one of the biggest problems is environmental cost of packaging. Does D2C have a structural problem with the need of packaging that is basically affecting the environment? And this does it sound reasonable that every food item comes packaged individually?
I can talk for the Cortilia target, which is really a bit different from the normal person, let's say. You know that one of our distinctive features is sustainability, and our client has always been more sustainable than average. In this period, the increase of packaging has been related to the increase of quantity, and this is unfortunately true, but we didn't put over packaging for the safety part, because we privileged other ways to do the safety, like the sprays, the X-rays, and other disinfecting features, let's say. What I noticed on the packaging side is that unfortunately the client feels more comfortable with packaged goods, even if at the end you will wash the vegetables. So maybe little by little, this overpacking phobia will relax a little bit.
Okay. In terms of opportunities for new direct-to-consumer channels about getting finance, what are the parameters that will be evaluated by investors now, Ivan?
I mean, the same as before. I don't think there is any difference. First and foremost, speed of growth. You know, if you have something that is working and you can show progressive growth, that's always going to be the first thing that people see. So what is the right level of growth? Coming from the digital world, I didn't think it was possible, but we see a lot of, not a lot, but we see quite a few businesses growing more than 100% year on year. Certainly when you're less than 10 million in revenues, it's certainly possible. After you pass the first level, so growth is everybody's favorite color. I think then you start to look into the margin stack, and within the margin stack, try to get to CM2 positive, you know, quickly. not just in terms of the business, but quickly in terms of the purchase behavior. So if a business takes a loss, think of meal kits. Meal kits, you need to get into your 4th or 5th or 6th box before you pay back the cost of acquisition. So we look a lot at payback periods. We look a lot at margin stack and the CLV equation. So large AOVs are great because the margin stack is great, but also large AOV may mean that you only buy every once in a while, right? So high frequency of purchase and the CLV versus CAC equation, just like in any digital business, are very important. And I think those are the important thing. And then I would say, not because of the previous question, but because it's really important to us as well. A food business, a digital business need to have a higher purpose than just sell you the next sugary drink or the next candy. Whether it is a healthier product, whether it is a more sustainable supply chain, whether it is a more conscious type of approach, I think the new generation of customers that Emna talks about, the one that actually read the information, they want to see where the food comes from, how it's done, by whom, and ethically or not, will not forgive the hiding the monkey just because you want to make another 2 basis points of gross margin.
Good. So another question, this one is for Emna. Can you elaborate on how, as a platform, you work in the cases that your producers loses their stock? Do you substitute by a different supplier? Do you just simply run out of stock, or do you have any active role into these type of situations? We don't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. This is an interesting part, even if in normal times, let's say, Ivan can say it for the portfolio, but I recommend for every portfolio, whether it is customer, supplier, anything, diversification. It's an old recipe, and unfortunately, it is still true. We used to have a diversification of suppliers, also based on the geographical and climate risks. Imagine the example of before of the strawberry, and now it is real for the fruit. You have some climate unexpected events that unfortunately take off all the suppliers' products. So diversification has always been a mantra. The other thing that was very important and specific to this period is the exchange of information with a high frequency. I don't know if maybe you don't know, but we have our predictive model is open to our suppliers. So they receive the order, for example, today for tomorrow, but our model is also open in the future for them to see it. So they can already see now what will happen, more or less, of course, in a week's time, in a month's time, with the predictive model with which we are working for replenishment. And this allows also the supplier to see in real time how much quantity is expected and to call us immediately and say, no, I stop because I don't have all this product quantity. What we noticed is that it was not the product itself that was missing, but maybe other pieces. For example, the transportation. For the long-term milk, there was a problem of Tetra Pak. So at some point, for example, everything you sold in Tetra Pak was sold out because there was no packaging. And the transparency and the current exchange with the supplier allows you all the time to be updated.
Mm-hmm. Okay, a question for you, Ivan. Did any of your companies in portfolio in urgent need of cash in the past 2 months? And how you reacted, if you can talk about it?
We do. So this is weird, right? This is very weird because you wouldn't expect this to be the case. But so we had 3 portfolio companies that were fundraising in Q1. There were 3 extremely successful fundraising rounds. I think in total, 3 companies raised 65 million. And this is testimony of the fact that food tech, and in one case, agri-tech, are hot topics. The truth is, all of those engagements, so the due diligence, I think, started probably around October, November, December, in that period of time. So some of the field visits, some of the factory visits have happened before. So in that respect, that helped a lot. But I wanted to add one more thing. We are actually closing a deal, hopefully in a couple of weeks. It will be our 8th investment here in France, where the factory visit happened with a Zoom call, just like the one we're having now. We had the head of production that received the script, exactly what we wanted to see. So it was almost like a director of a movie. And we said, okay, this is the script. And he was running around with the GoPro and filming everything, and with a mobile phone and all that. So we managed to complete that part, and it was I think everybody had a bit of a fun time to do it, because it's not the classic thing you do. So I think for companies that have like 95% of the data ready, so you can do your due diligence from remote, it's fine. You can do calls, you can do Zoom calls. It's not perfect, but yes, I don't think this period is the death of fundraising. As I said, we had 3 fantastic up rounds. We had 1 company that is about to close, and probably 1 more before the summer.
Yeah, we had a similar experiences in the last month. Zoom calls with investors for factories and production elements, and actually we managed to have a couple of companies in our portfolio to fundraise in this period. And to other companies, we advise them to make a cash pool and try to get as much cash as possible, in order to have to pass the year and start the year with a fresh cash pool. We have another question. In food, Amazon decided that they need an omni-channel strategy with physical stores. Do you think that physical presence is mandatory for direct to consumer?
It allows you to go at a different speed, because, for example, the Cortilia case before I told you, it was very easy to plug in 3 new servers, because you buy them, you plug in, and everything goes smooth. But making a new warehouse in these times is absolutely difficult. So if you have a physical presence, you can create another business model. You create like the quick delivery business model. And this allows also to open the click and collect part, because actually in the when you look at the customer sentiment survey, what they are afraid of is the contact in the supermarket and the queues. And if you have the click and collect, you can avoid these 2 things, but still you have less constraints than delivering the boxes at the house of the clients. So this allows you to go a little bit further, but you have also to be structured, of course, to have this kind of business. What I think is that a few retail chains will transform some shops into dark stores. Actually, what you need is a physical presence, not in terms of stores, but in terms of logistic hubs, let's say. So it's physical presence, yes, but not absolutely stores, because what you need is maybe a few square meters of dark store in every highly populated quarter, so that you can make hubs. And I don't know how much you are informed on the cost structure of delivery to your home, but actually the last mile is the most expensive part. So if you have a physical presence and you have an agile supply chain for the last mile, of course, it allows you to scale up in a different mode.
Okay.
I wanted to just maybe a point from the other point of view. So I think the question is, can you build a big business just direct to consumer? Again, nobody really has the full answer, but this is our opinion. I think there is no reason that you cannot get to 40, 50 million in revenues with D2C if you execute really well. After that point, probably you will have to concede the fact that still the vast majority of the food is bought in physical presence. So avoiding retailers and other food services, if you want to get to 200 million, 300 million revenues, eventually you have to cross that point. But the difference is that if you come to Carrefour, if you go to Cortilia or Corte Inglés, and you have 20 million of revenues direct to consumer, the name of the dog, the name of the children of your customer, when they shop, which day, what type of discount they respond to. You get into the conversation with the buyer in a retailer with a completely different balance of power. You know about your business and about your customers infinitely more than they do. And your brand, when you're making more than 10 million in revenues in one country, is a brand that is there. And that conversation, that dynamic is completely different than the one where you're going there hoping not to be squeezed on margins and on marketing activity and other things that you have to do, because that's what retailers are really, really good at getting their margin stack right, and you have to pay for it. So rather than dropping your price on your core product, you say, haha, no, we've learned the trick. Our core product stays online. We'll develop one for you with a different packaging, a different thing, so you keep things separated. The whole dynamic is different. But I think to get beyond 100 million in revenues, omni-channel is much better, and I think it's a more successful strategy also for product companies.
Good, perfect. So we don't have any more questions. I want to thank you both for taking your time and being with us. We really appreciate it. Hope to meet you soon, Ivan, again, and Emna, hope we can meet soon as well.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
And good night. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hasta la próxima.
For the rest of the audience, we are continuing with this series of seminars. We will be announcing them like a week before through LinkedIn, as we did with this one. We are going to keep on running this type of activities related to how startups and corporations can continue adapting to this new reality. Thanks, everyone, and hope to meet you soon.